Welcome to We Are Old, Get Over It, the podcast where we celebrate the wisdom of age and maybe a little grumbling too. Hello, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Ken, and today's subject is cremation versus burial. I had a problem though, because that wasn't the original name of this podcast this week. The original name was The Big Dirt Nap versus The Fiery Farewell. But I spoke to a few friends and they told me it wasn't such a good idea, but I figured I would mention it anyway. So I want to take this moment to introduce my guests today. There happen to be a married couple, happily married. I did find that out before we started the broadcast. They may not be after this broadcast is over. Joshua and Lacey Shook. And I'm introducing them, and I'm going to let them tell you the company that they work for and how to contact their company if you have any questions about the podcast. And again, remember that all the information will be on our blog on the website, which is weareoldpodcast.com. Okay, so it's all yours. I'm going to say Lacey first. It's all yours, Lacey and Joshua. So let's go.
Thank you so much for having us today. We appreciate the opportunity and we value the opportunity to educate our community. We work with National Cremation Society, and Josh and I have actually been with our company for over 15 years. So we do have quite a bit of experience and knowledge with helping the families. Our toll-free number is 1-855-469-9474. And that number can be reached toll-free from anywhere that you're calling from.
Okay. And what is your website for the company? You work for a large company, isn't that correct?
Yes. We work for Service Corporation International is our parent company. And our website is www.nationalcremation.com. And we've been serving our community for over 50 years. So we are a trusted company here in Florida and around the nation.
Okay. But you don't just do cremations, correct? You also
correct.
Do burials? Okay.
Correct. Some of our offices, we do burials as well.
Okay. So I know it's a sensitive subject. People don't like to talk about it, but I'm going to let you two speak about it. So why don't you go ahead and carry the conversation?
So yes, this is a very procrastinated topic. Most people, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about it. And it's something that is very easy, unless you're faced with the circumstance to have to deal with this, to just move forward through life. But this is something that is very important. A lot of people, they put their will in place. They put their trust. They get all of their finances in order. This is a part of that as well. Many people will say, well, I have a will. I've mentioned cremation or burial in my will. But the thing about a will is it is actually traditionally read long after those final arrangements have to be made and paid for. And a will is for the assets. So this is something that even attorneys, as you work through updating your will, they want you to put that in place. There are a lot of benefits to prearranging. Of course, we can always assist families that don't have arrangements in place at the time of passing. We still take the call and we will help your family. But it is so much easier to protect your family. When you prearrange, you are actually locking in the lowest price for cremation that it will ever be. It is locked in, guaranteed, and protected for your family. And it's important because right now the cost of burials and cremations are doubling in price every 6 to 8 years throughout the United States. So the sooner that you do this, the better it is for your family. And it makes it very simple. With our company, there is that one number that we provided you that families call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our funeral directors get in motion and we take over the cremation process.
Can I ask you one thing? And it's only because why I contacted your company in the first place was that my mother and father, prior to their deaths, they chose cremation and they chose your company, and we had the information. And when they passed, we contacted your company, and it made things so much easier on the four children, and it alleviated a couple of things. Number one, that we had to go find out how to deal with it. And number two, that we didn't have to pay for it.
That's
Not
right.
that that was an issue, but we
Mm-hmm.
never had to get in that discussion. So that was a very valuable lesson that we learned. And I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yes, because when people do have that in place, they've actually made those decisions ahead of time. You actually do everything that you can legally before your passing to say that, yes, I want to be cremated. We have a self-authorization form that is a legal document that allows us to move forward with your wishes. And you actually specify what you would like to have happen with the cremated remains. Otherwise, if someone passes away, most people, they've never even talked about it if they don't have the arrangements, and families are scrambling. It's a very emotional and vulnerable time. People tend to make decisions that they normally wouldn't make. That's when they tend to get taken advantage of financially as well. Even in our own life, when we look back, we're in the business, but when we have loved ones that pass, it's a lot different as you're going through the process and trying to handle those things for them. And you do things that you normally don't do through that time.
Yeah, even as you mentioned, Ken, it is a lot easier on the family when their loved one has pre-arrangements in place. I've noticed it firsthand dealing with families as a funeral director. Um, when you show them the contract that their loved one took out, that's their wishes in place. There's been times I've met families, they don't have any pre-arrangements in place. They can't decide whether they want cremation or burial. And there has to be a consensus with the family. If there's not, then we have to get a court order from the state, what we're going to be doing with the remains of their loved one, because everybody has to be in agreement. But when there's pre-arrangements in place, it kind of solidifies that loved one's wish.
Okay. I have one question about that, which was brought up to me by someone else. What happens if you're overseas traveling and you pass?
Well, with our company, we do have a travel protection plan. So if you pre-arrange with us, we can actually cover you anywhere that you pass away in the world. We actually do travel through a third party company called Apossi, and they actually do specialize in transporting the body. So when people do have a plan with us and they have that travel protection, then we actually take care of, through Apossi, bringing the body from wherever the passing has happened back to the United States to the area of residence so that we can then fulfill the contract.
Oh, good.
For
Thank
other
you for telling
countries,
me.
they actually do not cover and follow US standards. So you don't know what kind of standards they're following. So that's where we can bring you back so that we can take care of the cremation here in the United States.
Yeah, and that travel protection is so nice, Ken. We actually had a family a few years back. They actually left Florida to Germany. Right when they landed in Germany, her husband had passed away, pretty much right there in Germany. Um, if they didn't have that travel and relocation protection with our company, it would have costed thousands of dollars for her to have her husband's cremated remains brought back over here. But we took care of everything at no additional cost for that family. So it is it's a peace of mind for the family when they have those arrangements and travel protection in place, because you don't have to worry about anything. You just give us a call and we take over from there.
Okay. I do have another question. What's the cost comparison nowadays between burials and cremation?
Right now, the national average for the cost of a burial is between $15,000 and $20,000. But it can definitely be more than that depending on where you pass. If you are wanting your body to be traditionally buried, your body has to be shipped from wherever you pass to wherever your cemetery is at. So that can add on more cost. The type of casket. Also, if there's no cemetery property, because you do have to have some place to put the body. So if you have not got any cemetery property, that has to be purchased as well. So it can definitely be a lot more than that. And your monument.
Okay. And what would be the cost right now for cremations?
So our direct cremation package is about $2,800. So you can see there's a huge difference in price between the cremation and the national average for burial.
Yes, I see that. Definitely. Okay. Uh, what else do you want to mention to people about the types of burials that they would go through? How is that handled when you're burying someone?
When you're burying someone, there's a lot more involvement when it comes to the family. They have to decide whether they're going to have a visitation, if they're going to have any services. Also, if they're going to be having any funeral services, then you guys schedule with the cemetery opening and closing. With the cemetery schedule, the placement at the cemetery as well. So there's a lot more involvement when it comes to burials. But just like cremation, burials, we can personalize them, for the family, because we want to remember your loved one, and this is the final time you're going to be seeing your loved one. So we want to make that special for every family.
Okay. So uh, let's talk a little bit about the legacies of people. Uh, there's there's nothing right or wrong of how your final remains are taken care of. It's really your choice. Uh, and does it really makes it possible for easier for your loved ones when you've made those decisions in advance, not even bringing into consideration the that are involved, especially the emotional costs and the financial costs when somebody else in your family has to decide. How do you handle that?
Well, one thing with we as a funeral director, when I'm meeting families, I try to get to know the family, want to see what their wishes and needs are. One thing with our company, we try to accommodate every family we can, regardless of their budget. Um, we do offer veterans discounts as well for our veterans that serve. That's one thing we do as well for our veterans. We schedule military honors. We provide a flag for the family for their time in the service. We get a presidential memorial certificate for the family. But one thing we do, we try to listen to the needs of all of our families.
Okay. And Lacey, give me some more information about what you do for the company.
Yes, so I actually help families prearrange ahead of time to make it easier for their family where they take care of all their wishes. And we do talk about different options regarding the cremation. And so we do have options where we have direct cremations, which means that there are no services that families wish to have. We have options where we do have private brief viewings for families. Some families need closure, especially if families right now, everyone lives out of the area. So sometimes families need to say goodbye to their loved one before the cremation takes place. So we have those options as well. But we also have options of scattering their loved ones' cremated remains. So we can scatter in the Gulf. We can scatter in the Pacific, Atlantic Oceans, or the Rocky Mountain National Forest. So I have a lot of families that say, oh, I love the Rocky Mountains, or we live down here off the Gulf, and that would really mean something to us. So we can actually do whatever is important to someone else. Now, with the direct cremation, sometimes families may want their loved one placed into a cemetery property that they already have, and we'll assist with that. We can send cremated remains directly to the cemetery, or family can travel with them. We provide all of the documents that are necessary for them to do that. But some people, they do want to keep the cremated remains for a certain amount of time. I can't tell you how many families talk about that's a benefit of cremation, that having their loved ones' cremated remains with them, even just temporarily, helps them go through the grieving process.
One other question I had regarding uh, the one versus the other: what percentage of the clientele that you have cremation versus burial?
So right now, 78% of families here in Florida are choosing cremation. Throughout the whole United States, 58% of people are choosing cremation. So cremation has surpassed the burial.
Uh, why is there a difference of about 20%? I'm just curious.
Well, because here in Florida, we have people here from everywhere and their families are scattered. So for a lot of people here, they're not born and raised here, they're from somewhere else. So it makes more sense for them to be cremated wherever they pass away and then have their cremated remains to be sent to a loved one out of the area than the cost of preparation and shipping their body
I
somewhere
understand.
else.
Thank you for that answer, by the way.
You're
Um,
welcome.
what about people? Oh, I thought of one other question. New York City, Central Park. I found out, I hope that I'm right, that you can actually spread remains in Central Park. Have you ever heard that?
No, I've never heard that. Normally, there are certain rules and regulations when it comes to scattering of cremated remains. Normally, you have to be on private property. You have to have authorization from the property owner to scatter. Some people, you can't scatter any national parks or anything like that either.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have to, and if you do scatter in the Gulf or in the ocean, the law is you got to be 3 nautical miles off the shore.
Okay.
Some people think I'm just going to go spread mom off the beach, but technically by law, you have to be 3 nautical miles off the shore in order to scatter.
And there are other things that people do. For example, uh, if you're cremated, I've heard that people can make diamonds out of your remains and being a piece of jewelry where they can remember you by wearing that stone. Have you experienced that kind of thing?
Absolutely. There's several different memorial options available now to families. You just mentioned one of them, the Eternal Diamond. They also have what we call art glass, which
Hmm.
the glass has a small portion of the cremated remains inside the actual art piece for the family. Um, so there's different memorial options. There are even we also offer sending the cremated remains to space. Some families um,
How
want
does
their
that
loved
work?
one, if they were Star Wars fans, we can send the cremated remains to space. So there's several different options out there.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
that's an interesting one. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
And then we also have the Neptune Memorial Reef on the other coast, on the East Coast. We have the beautiful Neptune Reef. It's they call it the lost city of Atlantis. It's a beautiful reef underwater, and it's pretty much a city that has been built underwater, and they place cremated remains in the reef, and that's actually a beautiful resource as well that families have been choosing.
Well, these are all nice options that people can look into on the internet, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And what else would you like to let the people know today?
You know, the importance of pre-arranging is great, but if you don't have pre-arrangements in place, don't let that stop you because we're here to help you as well any way we can. So don't hesitate to give us a call. We're here to help.
And do you send people out? In other words, if the family is in suffering and there's a group of them, do you have somebody who will go out and speak to them, or is it all done over the phone or through, I would presume, over the phone?
Well, we do have different options. So we can go out to meet families. We can do things virtually as well by phone and email. And families can always come in person. So we have options for our families.
Okay. And is there anything else that you'd like to cover today?
I don't think so.
You can think about it.
I would like to just bring up the topic. I know there are a lot of different options for cremation out there and a lot of different companies. Our company, we do own over 1,800 locations throughout the US and Canada. So as you're working with our company, 85 to 90% of the time when you pre-arrange with us, you will actually be cremated and handled in our own facilities. And that is a very important aspect, because it's important to families to know that how their loved one is being handled, that they are in our care and custody through the whole process. A lot of people, they do actually get third-party companies to do cremations, or they try to find the cheapest third-party company to help families. But it's very important, as you're looking to prearrange, that you're looking for someone that can assist all of your needs and cover as many variables as they can without an additional expense for the family at the time of passing, to make things easier.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I think that some of the information you've given us in the brief period of time is really very beneficial to people. It's a subject that people don't feel comfortable speaking about, but what you were saying is that it's better to plan in advance, because at some point we're all going to pass. I guess that there is no right or wrong answer. It's your life, your death, your choice, basically. And you probably should talk to, even though it might be a difficult conversation, you probably should speak with your family members and get their input and talk about these things, even though it is a sensitive matter. Remember that we're all in this together. We're all old and getting over it, and we're planning for our final exit at some point. So maybe now is a good time to seek that advice. And there are other companies out there, correct, that provide the services. Sometimes they're local funeral homes that do it. There are other, I don't know how large other companies are, but I'm sure that on the internet you'll be able to find someone who can provide the services to you. And whatever you decide, make sure you have a good time until then. All right. And do you have anything else you want to add?
No, just thank you very much for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I always end a podcast with a famous quote. Sometimes the most famous come from people that are unknown, but I have one today from Maya Angelou, who is a famous author. And this is her quote. "I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And I want to thank you again. And again, the podcast information will be on our website in the next few days. And I look forward to seeing you at the next episode, or hearing from you on the next episode. If you have any comments or questions, you can always contact the company, or you can contact me. And the email address is weareoldpodcast@gmail.com. And again, thank you for listening, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon. And that concludes this episode of We Are Old, Get Over It. Thanks for joining me. I hope you found our conversation both insightful and entertaining. Remember, age is a journey, not a destination. So embrace the wrinkles, the forgetfulness, and the occasional tech frustrations with a good dose of get over it attitude. Until next time, keep laughing, keep learning, and keep getting over it. Ken out.